Hi, you're listening to After Dinner Conversations, short stories for long discussions. What that means is we get short stories, we select those short stories, and then we discuss them specifically about the ethics and the morality of the choices the characters and the situations put us in. Why did you do this? What makes you do this? What makes us good people? What's the nature of truth, goodness, all of that sort of stuff. And hopefully we're all better, smarter people for it and learn a little bit about why we think the way we think. So thank you for listening. Welcome back once again to another social distancing edition of After Dinner Conversation, short stories for long discussions, where we take short stories from the After Dinner publication that we particularly like. We read them ourselves, and then we talk about them the same way we would hope you would, and have conversations about the ethics and philosophy and underlying sort of values of the person making choices in the story. And we sort of model the things that we hope you're doing with your friends and family when you read these stories. I am your co-host, Kolby, here with Ashley.
Hello.
And co-host Jeremy, as always.
Hi.
Hi. And the story... please like and subscribe. Please let your friends know. Also, please add us on Patreon. We only can afford to do this because of the support of our Patreon subscribers. You can do that at patreon.com/After Dinner Conversation. Additionally, we've got 50 short stories out right now. You can get them all on Amazon. So if you like this one, you can go download this one or other ones, often for free. If you want a paperback copy, you can buy season 1, which is 25 of these short stories.
Or season 2.
Which comes out at the end of July. It's available for pre-order right now on Amazon. Okay, so Ashley, you are the one who got Prevention by, was it Margaret
Karmazin.
Another person who we've had another story from before.
Yes, she is coming in strong with all of her stories, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So this is a bit of a longer story. I'm going to keep the synopsis short and sweet so we can just dive into the questions and discussion. For sure, if you can, please read this one first because I'm going to skip over a lot of stuff and there's a lot of good stuff to talk about. So basically there is this lady, Sharon. She is the mother of 2 children. She's divorced. Her husband is off married to some young lady. Her older daughter, is it Haley? Yeah, Haley. She is kind of the ideal child. It's her favorite child. She had kind of a hard upbringing. They didn't know that she was type 1 diabetic, and so all of the family's focus went on her. She's going to go off to college. She's a wonderful, ideal daughter. It's her favorite child. She also has a son, Ethan, who is quiet, reserved, forgotten about, doesn't really act out, but is just very secluded. He doesn't really interact much.
He's a teenager.
He's a teenager in high school. So in a nutshell, he forgets his backpack. She decides to open up his laptop in the backpack to kind of pry in about her son, who's obviously very quiet and reserved. Lo and behold, she finds out there is a school shooting plan that he has. He's on websites talking about school shootings. She goes in his room, finds that he has guns underneath his bed. There's drugs in his drawer. She understands exactly what he's planning to do. Out of fear of ruining her daughter's life and her life by letting the authorities know that her son has this plan, she decides to kill her son by mixing drugs into his morning coffee. He dies. She destroys the guns, destroys his laptop, and basically she thought that was the most, in her opinion, ethical way to stop that school shooting from happening, and saving lives, not just the kids at school, but also...
And she gets away with it.
Yeah.
So you had strong feelings about this one, didn't you, Ashley?
There was a lot. Again, read this story. There was a lot. So, what did you have strong feelings about this one?
Not as much as I did about An Infinite Game. I think I find I find the intellectual questions sometimes more interesting to me than the emotional questions. First off, this is sort of a trigger warning story. It's about school shootings. So if that's not your thing or you've ever had an experience with that, maybe you don't want to listen to this one. I thought it was really well written. And I mean, there's a reason that we've now published 2 or 3 different things by the same author because she's an outstanding author. And I thought that the details of sort of the getting rid of the evidence and the finding the stuff and the researching on the internet, I thought all of that was really well done. As far as the question itself of like, you know, do you kill your kid? For me, I thought the most interesting part of the story was the sort of her hierarchy of priorities, right? Obviously, you know, killing your own kid's a terrible thing. You shouldn't do it, blah, blah, blah. But her hierarchy of priorities, you would think would be number 1, the safety or happiness of her child, her son. Number 2 would be her daughter. Number 3, you know, would be the community, and then maybe 4 would be herself. But that is definitely not what it was here. What it was is priority number 1 was her daughter. Yeah, I'm seeing Jeremy. It's because you're not talking. That's probably why your mic's not green. And her son was like number 4. And that was, I thought her priorities of, our hierarchical priorities of importance, I thought were really messed up and were not appropriate. That was the part that I found most interesting about it.
Yes.
No,
Jeremy?
there's
Jeremy,
a lot to unpack
mute.
in this story. Oh,
You're on mute. Sorry, technical difficulties.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
There we go. Now he's
Yeah,
back.
sorry about that.
There we go. That's
So,
okay.
All right, Jeremy, as a parent, obviously we are not parents.
There's a whole
I would
lot to
imagine.
unpack in this story. And
Yeah.
I almost
hear it.
wanted to suggest that you not include this story because it's so triggering, and from like the perspective of Sandy Hook. And specifically,
or Columbine or
right.
So many
more
else,
specifically because of Sandy Hook, where the mother of the shooter did know that the son was
I didn't know
troubled,
that.
and there were things about this. And what this story suggests is that killing your child is the best solution in this scenario. And I question that, that this could be used in a way to suggest that, maybe that's what should have been done. And I don't think there's really any scenario where that honestly is something that a parent would do.
Right, or even should do.
Well, I don't think that a parent would do that.
Yeah.
To their own child in any situation.
Yeah, that's fair.
That this story goes to a lot of ends to give her reasons to do it, and I don't think they're valid.
Okay.
So
your concern with the story is that it might that it was either unrealistic or that it might give people
right, that
an
it's
excuse.
one that it's, yes. To suggest that this is the right solution and that that you shouldn't take this to law enforcement.
Wow, did we finally find a story that's a bridge too far for you, Jeremy?
No, it's not a bridge too far.
The cannibalism story, you're like, let's talk about that. Yeah.
I think, just to extrapolate that just a little bit, there was a TED Talk by the mother of one of the Columbine shooters. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
No, I haven't seen that.
Sharon's concerns were a little valid on how it would affect her family, because she's wrapped up in that, how could you let your son do this and not know? So to say it wouldn't affect her or her daughter is a little...
You now become the family with the son who shot up a school.
Yeah, so
that follows you forever.
Exactly. So anyway, it was a interesting TED Talk that was by a mother of one of the, I think it was one of the Columbine shooters. So anyway, that's also out there if you ever want to watch that. But continue. No. Oh, okay.
No, I'm good. Ashley, what did you think about it?
I disagreed with the mother's choices. I think her hierarchy and priorities were skewed. I can see how a parent who does have one favored child and would do anything for that child, that she's going to do everything in her power for that child. She obviously loves Haley so much. I don't think you can dispute that a parent would do anything for their kid. And apparently in this case, Sharon would go so as far to kill her other child who she has no emotional attachment to.
She doesn't even cry.
Even the father, who is distant, didn't react at all either. He's kind of like a throwaway kid. It's not even her kid. It's just, this is something I gave birth to and have to care for and am responsible for, but has no emotional attachment to.
And she even talks about, like, he never got pudgy like a baby, and I never
right.
got to where I loved him the way I loved other babies.
Right. And that's what I was saying. The author goes to a lot of ends to give her reasons to justify this. And one thing that you can say about it is all of her decisions to go ahead and kill her son does kind of put some credence to the, well, no wonder he was a psychopath also.
Oh, that's a great point.
Clearly, if you can do this and you can, on the fly plan the murder of your child and the cover-up.
Then don't be surprised when your child's planning the murder of other people.
Right. And maybe that's also the point the author is trying to make.
That's an interesting point. That hadn't even occurred to me when I read it. But yeah, that would make sense. I mean, I definitely, when I read it, I thought to myself, first I thought, okay, this is a typical teenage boy. Like, not the typical teenage boys shoot up to school, but that they, they're in a broken...
aloof.
Yeah, they're in a broken home. They're aloof.
He doesn't have a male father figure to talk to. It's just a mom who is busy.
And so his friends became sort of this surrogate source of values and support. His mom seems not particularly concerned that she's not a more active part in his life. She's just like, well, I've given him a roof and I've given him food and I give him coffee in the morning and we don't get along. So, he'll sort it out.
She writes him off.
Yeah, she writes him off as a duty rather than a thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I think everything in this story up into the shooting part where I think is pretty accurate representation of the way some teenage experiences are. Right. And then maybe as you get older, you get positive influences or you get to, you go to a job or have a boss or a school or a military career that give you a better sense of purpose and direction that gets you out of this sort of 16-year-old, goth phase.
I definitely feel for Ethan in the fact of imagine growing up in a household where you have needs and want to be loved. And here is a mother who is so overwhelmed and so in love with her daughter and taking care of her daughter. He doesn't get the therapy that he needs. He doesn't get the love and attention he needs. He's basically neglected even the mother admits that. That has got to be so hard.
Well, and I thought that the story did a good job of giving an explanation for it, right? Like, as he was starting to struggle with stuff, they were so busy with the other daughter's medical needs, going to the ER and getting her, that you can understand where just with a limited amount of attention, if you have a daughter that has a lot of medical needs, you just aren't going to have the time. Like, it's just not the building on fire at that moment.
In that sense, I feel like Sharon feels guilty. This is my problem. This is my doing. I think in some regard, she thinks Ethan is my fault. I created this monster. I admit that I neglected him for so long. This is my problem and I need to fix it. And her way of fixing it is to get rid of the problem. And I think in her mind, this is not a person. This is not fixable. This is beyond hope, that she would rather just get rid of him.
Yeah. Speaking of game theory from our one last time, I feel like that's kind of what she's doing here, right? Like she's treating it like a chessboard rather than like a person. And I'm not even sure from a game theory sort of chessboard, I'm not even sure she's making the right decision. And even if she was treating it as a game theory sort of problem, why do you think that obviously the story talks a little bit about her not going to the police, but why do you think, is it just a simple answer? She didn't go to the police because she doesn't want to mess up her daughter's life? Is it as simple as that?
Well, she also doesn't want to get in trouble. And they're going to blame, how did this kid get to this degree?
Yeah.
What did you do as a parent?
I think that's where my frustration comes in, is that I'm trying to think of the right way to phrase this. It's all kind of convoluted in my head.
Jeremy, you were saying?
Oh, yeah, if you want.
Well, no, I think to your point, how much is she to blame for his condition? Your question number one.
Yeah.
Through her negligence or any of that.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think she's to blame? Like, when there's a school shooting, do you think it's, in this case, in the story, or generally speaking, that it's like, you don't be like, yeah, that kid messed up. You know, that parent messed up.
That's a slippery slope to say that the parent is responsible for the child's actions, 100%.
Yeah.
It's because you're not. I mean, you are there to mold and raise your child, but you're not their only influence, and there are other, extraneous conditions that can change their path. And ultimately, it's still the decision of that child to do this.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It is a child. That child is under 18. You are held responsible. That's a huge burden to carry, and that's the responsibility that you have for choosing to have a child.
Like, I think it's an interesting story choice, but I did make me wonder, why didn't she just grab that kid out of school, like, throw away his laptop, throw away his guns, throw away his drugs, and just be like, yo, you're going to live with your father. You're going either at the easiest, you're going to live with your father, but probably more appropriately, we're taking you to a hospital that deals with people that
there
are having
better solutions that don't even involve the police.
Right, that just involve me taking away everything you own and taking you to a health facility, whatever that might be that's appropriate, and having them keep you from hurting others and start helping you to work through your issues.
She's very afraid. She thinks he could turn on her at that moment. We don't know the size of this guy.
That's where she mentions that.
He could have grabbed a knife and decided to kill her.
Exactly. If you confront him right away, but, there's a solution for that as well. There are other people you can get involved, including the son's father. So that isn't an issue.
So that was one of the things I thought that was really, it was just a throwaway line. It was a small line, but I thought it was really helpful in sort of setting the tone, is that she said I could tell the father, but he would dismiss it and tell me I was being blah, 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 blah. And
I was overreacting.
Yeah, and so I think that's reflective of their relationship, but it's also reflective of her inability to have agency, right? Like she, the fact that he was going to belittle her or disbelieve her for drawing this out made her stop that train of thought altogether, as opposed to saying, like, he treats me this way, but I don't treat me this way. Therefore, I am going to do other things, even without the support of the father.
No, that's a perfect example. You're like, well, why can't you just drop the kid off at the father? The father doesn't want anything to do with him. He can say, no, don't bring him here.
Right, but the point
he
is
still
that
has a legal responsibility.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we don't. Well, what is the custody? Obviously that is the father, but we don't know the custody arrangements. Maybe he has zero responsibility towards this son.
Well, but I think in part, the reason that she didn't do more is because her imagining him telling her that she was blowing it out of proportion had an impact on her decision making.
Yeah. Her imagination did.
Right. She's like, I can't tell anyone because therefore everyone will say this. Right. And so it doesn't do good to tell anyone about what's going on.
Yeah.
And so therefore it's only on me. And I think, I forget which of you said it, but I think that shows the failings in her that you then see show up in the child, right? The sort of issues of struggling with sort of emotional intelligence and self-assuredness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we're all just too shy to talk about this too much, but
I don't know, Jeremy. You felt really strong about the story. Like, what else did it draw out to you? Anything else that you saw that you?
I mean, those really, I don't know, just such a strong reaction to the fact that she would do that to her own child, and when there are clearly other solutions, and just from a person perspective, if that's the only solution, I feel like there's something wrong with you as well. And again, maybe that's the point of this story. is more that than what's wrong with Ethan.
So would you have liked to have seen more in the story about explaining what led her to sort of these failings and choices?
Yeah,
because
definitely.
we don't really get her internal monologue much.
Exactly. That probably would have really expanded on the story as, what is driving her to these decisions?
Yeah.
What in her backstory drove her to these decisions? That would make this more interesting.
And it would also maybe make it more, I don't want to say believable, but more,
Right.
Maybe more believable. I don't know, just so that it's not just a thought problem, so that it's a human,
a human problem.
A human problem, yeah.
How about just the feelings that we don't have systems in place to assist a mother in this situation where to handle a behavioral or psychological issue in a safe manner that doesn't come with all this stigma. We don't have that in place.
Yeah.
I mean, where are you supposed to go when you find out this information that your kid's addicted or he has, murderous thoughts or what have you? There isn't. I mean, how long ago was the first school shooting and we still don't have those things in place?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
true.
Aside from going to the police and then it being like,
There's not like a hotline.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No,
Exactly. I mean,
I'm
there's
pretty sure there is a hotline.
Is there a school shooting hotline?
There probably
There
is.
probably is. Yeah,
Yeah.
there probably is. I would like to think there is.
I'd like to point out a couple of things that come to light. One, the fact that a parent has a favorite child and is okay to admit that. I'm from a family with 2 siblings, and obviously there's only 2 parents. There's definitely, even I feel it a little bit, knowing that my mom definitely loves one of my siblings more than myself. I do feel that
But your dad
to some
likes
degree.
you better, so it's okay. It balances out.
I disagree.
don't think your dad likes you better?
My dad and I are very, very similar in personality-wise. So I think we bond a lot. We have a lot of the same hobbies, a lot of the same this. But I do think that he loves us all equally. Now, how do my brothers feel about that? I think they would disagree. However, I grew up a lot of time with my dad for medical visits. He was the one that would take me. So yeah, we had this extra time to bond. I don't think that necessarily means that he loves me more. I really, truly believe that.
So do you think that in the story, do you think the lady, Sharon, I think is her name, would have done something differently if it had turned out that her daughter was the one planning to do something horrible?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, I think if this is her favorite daughter ever, she's like, she sees the light, she sees the good in her daughter. Let me do anything I can do to save her.
Wow. So you don't think it was just a failing of choice in Sharon, the mom, but you think it was a failing of choice specific to that child?
Yes.
Wow. Jeremy, do you agree with that or disagree?
I'm not sure. It's
Not enough in the story to know?
Right. I think so.
Yeah. Huh.
How about the fact that here is a mother who is so overwhelmed and can't even get some of the basic needs for her son, who obviously showed some issues when he was younger. She even admits, I should have taken him to counseling, but I was so overwhelmed. The criticalness of early child development really comes to light.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that is a huge thing. To put it into light right now with COVID-19, how many parents are struggling to meet their kids' basic needs because their kids are home and they've got a job to do and they can't meet all their needs and kids are acting out because they're frustrated. Life is different. I can't see my friends. It makes me wonder how many children are going to have long-lasting effects from
Parents
this.
were just overwhelmed.
Parents were just super overwhelmed right now.
Yeah.
It's frightening. And so not to make like a silver lining, but hopefully people will.
Hi, this is Kolby, and you are listening to After Dinner Conversation, short stories for long discussions. But you already knew that, didn't you? If you'd like to support what we do at After Dinner Conversation, head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/afterdinnerconversation. That's right, for as little as $5 a month, you can support thoughtful conversations like the one you're listening to. And as an ad incentive for being a Patreon supporter, you'll get early access to new short stories and ad-free podcasts, meaning you'll never have to listen to this blurb again. At higher levels of support,
You'll be able to vote on which short stories become podcast discussions. And you'll even be able to submit questions for us to discuss during these podcasts. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being the kind of person that supports thoughtful discussion.
Not to make like a silver lining, but hopefully people will be more tolerant and understanding. And
you were the COVID generation.
We went through this. We understand how hard it is to deal with a child acting out, like as kind of an understanding of child psychology, and it's not just the kid's around you 24/7, and yet he still develops bad behaviors, and it's like, no, it's more than just.
I mean, I don't think it's rare for a single parent with some issues to be overwhelmed in parenting. Like it just so happens that this kid got in with the wrong crowd and they had a bad influence and I
don't even think it has to be a single parent. I think you can have two parents and you can have one child, 2 kids, 3 kids. But if those kids are super hyper, if they are super intelligent, if they are anywhere, just a handful. I mean, I have 2 parents and my brothers
child can be a handful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If depending on what they're like.
Yeah.
And every parent is different. Their tolerance levels might be lower, they might be higher. So one kid making a mess might throw a parent crazy town and they just can't handle it.
So I just want to talk about, sorry, I agree with all that.
I just think it brings to light all of these child development issues, and then the fact that there's jealousy issues with a parent loving a kid over another kid, the one parent being out of the picture completely, all of these complexities that it's not as simple as just love them more. It's well,
I think in the story, I think the kid is a more believable character in some ways than the mom. Right?
Yes.
Because the kid, like, you can see how a kid with a aloof father and a mom that's overworked can get in and get going in a wrong direction. It's harder to understand how a mother can not love her son enough to
get him help.
To get him help. Yeah, that I think was the part I struggled with. It sounds like what you struggle with too,
Jeremy. I'd like to bring up postpartum. Like, you're just supposed to automatically love your kid. There's so many women that give birth to children and are like, I just don't feel bonded with this child.
If they looked like puppies, people would be.
But it's a valid thing. Yeah. Like, you think there's supposed to be this great bonding experience and life is great now that their kids into the world, and they really struggle with that.
So let me talk about one of the things just briefly that I thought was frustrating to me about this story, and I understand why they didn't do it. But so there were 3 of them that were going to shoot up the school, I think.
Right.
And so
what happened to the other 2 kids?
Exactly. Like, I feel like the shooting might have happened anyway, or maybe happened a couple of weeks later, or like she seemed totally indifferent to the fact that the shooting was going to happen. Because if she had been worried that the shooting was going to happen, she would have told someone about the shooting.
Right.
But
about
she wasn't.
The plans.
Yeah, she was worried about her family and her kid.
Right.
And so she solved her family's problem, but not the school's problem.
Right. Well, was one of the messages, like, there was a conversation she read, and maybe, like, I'm thinking maybe this was taken care of in the story, that he had all the guns they were going to use. The other kids didn't have them.
Sure. I mean, good thing you can't find more guns in America.
Right. But I mean, in that particular scenario, but yes, so maybe it would have happened a couple weeks later when they got their plans to get them somewhere else.
Right, and that's the thing that I think that shows her sort of lack of
she's like, not my responsibility, not my problem.
Yeah, the school is really not her concern. If it had been, she would have told the school about the shooting.
Yeah.
Right, as opposed because there's two other kids more out there that are still waiting to do this.
I can understand, because I grew up in a family where your name means something. Like, you represent the family. So maybe Sharon grew up in that you have to have face. You have to save face. Your name means something.
I guess.
Who you are means something.
It shouldn't mean more than a school of kids getting shot up, though.
Correct. But keep in mind, she's so overwhelmed, she can't even think of other kids. She couldn't even think of her own kid. She's so overwhelmed, she can't think about a whole school. She's just caring about her daughter. And that's literally her maximum that she has chosen or is capable of caring about. Herself and her kid and reputation. That's it.
It becomes a good use case for universal health care.
That's true.
She would have resources when he was younger.
Yeah, there's a reason this never happens. Yeah, there's a reason this never happens in Norway, right?
Well, I don't think it was a financial issue, though, of not having insurance. It was a time issue. She's like, I would have loved to have taken him to counseling. I just didn't have time or the energy. I don't think it was a financial issue.
Let me ask you a quick question for you, Jeremy, since I know Ashley and I have been doing a lot of talking on this one. One of the questions is after killing her son, did Sharon have a moral duty to turn herself in for having committed the crime? Or was she allowed to act in support of her own self-preservation by lying to the police? So she could have, said that the drugs were hers. She could have just said, look, I thought my son was going to shoot up the school, and so I killed my son. I feel like I made the right choice. Or she could have not even explained the school shooting. She could have just said, I don't want to talk about it, but I killed my son. And this goes back to our thing with the prohibition, the one about the barbecuing. And you said, barbecue in the street if you've got a protest, but you have to accept your punishment of your choices.
Right.
So what do you think she was the best choice?
Right. Again, the reason she did it is the same reason she's doing everything else. Or the reason she didn't turn herself in is the same reason she's doing everything else, is to preserve the, face for her family, for her and her daughter.
Yeah.
Because any negative press is bad. Her killing her son is just as bad as her son killing kids in the school.
So what would you put, Jeremy, how would you rank her hierarchy of priorities from like her daughter / family, however you want to phrase it, all the way down to whatever you think her lowest priority in her decision making was?
I think you're right. I think that the concern for the school was very low on the list. And she even says that it wasn't about saving the other kids. It was about all the negative publicity of being the family of the killer. So her concern for the school was at the bottom of the list. The concern for her son was, above that, but, still clearly below her concern for her and her daughter.
Yeah.
If you look at it, if those are the four things that she's concerned about.
Yeah. So in that regard, if is the amount of evidence that she had sufficient enough? Is her own intuition strong enough? Then in her own little bubble, she made the right decision. She took out the problem.
Based on her priorities, she made the right choice.
Yeah.
But her priority, like her hierarchy they're totally skewed. Here's the thing I thought as I was reading it as well, and I kind of had forgotten about it till just now. I don't know what the term is. You guys probably know better than I do. Like this sort of like sociopathy, or the sort of the people that have like no sort of inner whatever.
Right.
Sociopath. Thank you. Yeah. Which I think the other version has sociopathy. I feel like she's a little bit of a sociopath in the way she's written in this story, in that she never cries over the kid. She sits and drinks coffee waiting for him to die in the other room. She is very clear thinking in destroying the laptop and hiding and bending the guns. And like her thought process is so unemotional. It really shows just a level of mental dysfunction that I think warrants her getting hospitalized.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really demonstrates the lengths she's willing to go to protect her daughter and herself. And if your lengths are as far as killing a member of your own family, whether you love them or not, but that is someone that you are is your family member that you grew up with, that you raised, she's willing to go that far. Yeah, she's
well, it's not just she's willing to go that far. That she's willing to go that far, and it does not affect her to go that far.
Yeah,
like it's one thing. Yeah. It's one thing to do it because you feel you have to, and you're hysterical and crying and miserable because of it. She does not seem hysterical and crying and miserable because of it. No, she's just a sociopath, now, which maybe is genetically
again the point of the story. Right.
Yeah.
You have to imagine in her world, imagine that you've built up this empire and this is all of your dreams come true. And you come across a situation that is going to take all of that away. You come across this maniac who's building bombs. Like that is in her world how it came to be. She built up her wonderful castle, and here comes this person who's going to take her castle away. So if you were to come to somebody who has this plan of world domination, or that is going to destroy your life, have you ever not thought, can I just eliminate that person? I mean, how many have had that situation?
Again, an interesting
It's
version
a
of the trolley
thought.
problem. So,
Yeah. That's a good point. This is kind of a trolley problem.
It is. She's willing to kill this one person and not just pull the lever and he falls in front of the train or the train is diverted and kills him, but she's doing the killing. So, again, it's that, how far down this path have you gone?
But what do you think of this, Jeremy? I actually think it's even more interesting than the trolley problem in the sense the trolley problem is, you pull the lever and one person dies and 4 people live. In this case, though, it's not that she pulls the lever and her son dies and the school lives. That is not her priority. It's really a 1-to-1 track. She pulls the lever and her son dies, so her daughter lives. Mm-hmm. It's really it's not a math problem. It's a like Ashley said, it's a who I love more problem.
Yeah.
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 Because she's a psychopath.
Right.
So if you were to be like, hey, I love my wife more over this random stranger, in her mind, she's like, I'm going to save the one that I love more.
Yeah.
If a train was coming for me versus a stranger, would you pull that lever?
I refuse to answer these questions on the grounds they might not be good for me.
But that's in her mind exactly it. It is the person I love versus...
Well, she just doesn't have an emotional connection to her son. Right, and so
he's just
in her
person.
In her mind, the person on the track that she's killing is a stranger.
Yes,
not her son.
A dangerous stranger.
Right,
who's going to take away her world. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
and so it isn't even a life for a life; it's a life for well-being. For her
that makes
well-being.
So are we all in agreement that that if we're placing blame here, we put a little bit of blame with the kid because there is some agency there, but the vast majority of the blame we put with the mom? I mean, she's like a 10 and the son's like a 3 in the blame category?
Yeah, at this particular point in time, because he hasn't done anything yet.
Yeah. Do you put any so
you have to wait for him to do something?
No, that's what I'm saying, but in a blame sense, he's planning, but he hasn't committed the crime. So again, he's committed thought crimes at this point. And not actual crimes.
Yeah.
Jeremy, how much blame do you put with the dad? Any?
It's certainly certainly in a negligence sense.
So would you put him sort of somewhere between the mom and the son in the sort of to blame category?
Probably. Yeah. Okay. Again, there's not enough information really other than that he wasn't there. So.
Okay. Fair enough.
I was going to say, put yourself in the son's shoes. Like, you're here in a world where nobody loves you. Like, you can see how quickly he got wrapped into that. It's really sad.
Yeah. I feel bad for the son. I put very little blame with the son. Very, like some, but very little.
So saying that, we do have these life situations that have happened. Do you go to the mothers or the parents of the kids that have committed school shootings and go,
I didn't even think about
the blame's with you, not with the kid?
Yeah, I don't know.
We didn't even talk about that.
I'm just saying,
I didn't even think about that when I read the
we just went down this rabbit hole. And we are, hence I brought up, watch the TED Talk with one of the mothers from the school shootings.
Yeah.
It's like you watch this mom and you
because the kid is a monster and the mom goes to work the next day.
That's the difference here.
Well, no, I mean, and that's maybe not the way it should be, right? That like when there's a school shooting, the kid is the monster, and we feel like, oh, the parents, what are they going through? It's like, no, you're the parent who should have like realized your kid was struggling, and yet we don't really ever talk about those parents.
Kids can fake it.
Yeah, no, I
Kids
mean,
can fake it. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know what your daughter's doing.
So
at night.
I find it interesting that in our conversation we came so quick to blame Sharon when, say, he did go through it, we would have never
but
blamed
not for
Sharon.
his actions. We blame her for her actions.
Yeah, no,
in
yes.
the scenario.
But if we would have just let Sharon not kill him and let Ethan go and kill everybody, would we have come to the same?
Oh, I think she'd be just as guilty. I think the difference is she didn't make the choice of contacting authorities or simply
When she knew.
or simply like being like, hey, we're going to Disneyland, and then driven him to like a mental institution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd just like to point out, if given the choice, if you had come across somebody who plans to do something totally destructive to the person that you love, and you had the chance to stop it right then and there, would you take it?
If it's a person like a stranger?
Just saying. Yeah. If it's a stranger.
Oh, yeah. I would do it. I would stop it.
That's exactly what she did.
Because she views her son as a stranger.
Yes.
That's why we're being unfair to her, right? Is because we think she should view her son as a son, and she views her son as a stranger.
Yeah, she sees him as just a stranger.
Yeah.
So we agree that given in the situation, if
That's
we
a
were
good
to
point.
find that plot, we would be like, yeah, no, I would take care of that.
I feel like if we're going to get comments in our if we're ever going to get comments on our discussion thread about why we're morons and we don't know what we're talking about, I feel like this is the
one.
story. This is the one, right? Not the cannibal one. This is the one.
We gave premise that this is a hard one. We're working through this in this video. So we need to put these things in perspective.
Yeah.
It's not...
We're figuring it out as we go, for sure.
Yeah.
Even as we're
We're
talking
so
about
critical to say, it's the parent. No, if we had the opportunity, we'd kill. It's like, well, we're just as,
But this is the thing I like about these discussions that we have, and the thing I like about the stories that we have is I don't exactly know what I think until I start talking with both of you to hear your perspectives, to hear your ideas, and to start thinking about the things that I haven't thought about yet. Honestly, the same thing happens when we do those weekly virtual book clubs. So we've done 4 or 5 of those now, and every time people have brought up comments, readers have brought up comments as I'm moderating it, and I'm like, oh man, that didn't even occur to me.
Yeah.
And it didn't occur to us when we did the podcast.
Hence, read these stories.
Yeah.
Get involved. If you don't have friends that you could talk about this, join the weekly discussions. Share the stories. Comment on the podcasts. This is on YouTube. You can get a thread going on Facebook. Get a thread going.
Because these are tough things.
These are very tough things, and there shouldn't be blame. I mean, look at me just sitting here discussing with you guys has made me. I wasn't set in stone in one thought. It was just my emotional reaction to the story. But the more we've delved into it, my thought processes have evolved and changed, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we'll cut it off here. That's not a great transition, but I'm emotionally drained from this one. This is a tough one.
This is a tough one.
So you've been listening to After Dinner Conversation, short stories for long discussions, where we pick short stories from our publication and discuss them the same way we hope you would. There are questions at the end of these short stories. So go ahead and download this one. If you hate what we've had to say, go download it, read it, put in the comments your own thoughts. Please like and subscribe. Please support us on Patreon at patreon.com/After Dinner Conversation. If you are more of a paperback reader, season 1 is currently out. Season 2 is out and available for pre-order right now. It'll be out at the end of July. And thank you for joining us on behalf of myself and Ashley and Jeremy, who's been pretty quiet in this one.
Well, yes and no.
Well, so you're the only one with kids. You're I feel like you're like, I don't want to.
Yeah, I would love to have. Man, I don't want to make this podcast any longer than it is. But as a parent, obviously I'm not a parent. That was the one thing I wanted to pick your brain of.
I feel like you got really good kids though. Like as a reflection of both you and their mother, they're artistic and they're both artistically and scientifically minded. They both
kind.
They're kind. They neither of them are teen pregnancies. Like I feel like you just I don't know. I'm jealous of. I'm sure you have your own struggles and your own stories you could tell about like times you wanted to throttle them.
But they've generally been really good, and free range parenting has its upsides. They're pretty well balanced and stable kids.
Yeah, and they're never going to get in the van with a guy with.
Have there been instances?
Candy.
Have there been instances where you were worried about the decisions that they were making? And
definitely.
And wanted to jump in.
I don't mean like their cosplay decisions. Like, no. I mean like their actual decisions. Yeah.
Certainly, but you have to let them make their own decisions and just be there to help if they go bad. But neither of them have made bad decisions,
and they've never made life-changing decisions like in this story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, bad decisions in that sense.
They're of they're of the piercing variety, not the school shooting variety.
Bad fashion decisions.
Yeah. I've seen some of those
at least from my
man.
perspective, right?
Yeah.
Does it worry you about kids at schools? Being, a parent of a kid that's at school, do you wish more parents were more involved? Do you feel like you would take your daughter out of school because you are concerned that parents aren't being more involved?
No, not in that sense, because I really support public education, and public education is a cornerstone of raising good kids. And
there's a sort of shared cultural event.
Yes, and having a good society. Public education has to be a part of that, and we should be supporting public education a lot more than we do. In a lot of ways, in having good counseling available, and having paying teachers well, and all of those things.
Now, your kids grew up in the generation of doing, school shooter drills. I didn't grow up in that generation of having.
Me either. Yeah.
So how?
Jeremy grew up in the communist hide under your desk, duck and cover era.
No. So how now? Having witnessed your daughter, have they ever talked about it with you? Has it ever been a concern for them?
No, I think it's part of the new normal, and so.
Oh man.
Right, and so it just I get emails. There are lockdowns today because of. Somebody robbed the Baskin Robbins on the corner, and the school got locked down.
Yeah.
And they're just like, whatever, we didn't even notice it. We were in class.
Yeah.
It's...
Yeah.
Interesting times.
All right. Well, hey, thank you for joining us. And thank you again, Jeremy, for your insight on this, since we don't have the same kind of insights you do.
We're going to have four-legged furry.
Yeah, I'm just going to have a dog. Dogs, puppies never go on school shootings. Worst they do is don't make it outside. All right, we'll see you in 2 weeks for our next podcast. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. If you've enjoyed listening to this, please like and subscribe. It helps us out a ton. The vast majority of people haven't liked and subscribed, which means maybe it shows up in your algorithm, maybe it doesn't. So don't leave that to chance. Just go ahead and hit that button, and we'd sure appreciate that. And that way we can keep doing what we're doing, and you're not left to the whims of some algorithm. Thanks.